I wasn't late. Wasn't ready, but I wasn't late. Whew. Sorry, I had to go run a couple errands with my husband, and we like literally got home and jumped out of the truck and ran upstairs. Like, oh my gosh. So I think I'm good. I think I'm good. Hey, Tammy, how you doing? Thank you. Yeah. Try to change it with the seasons if I can. Sometimes I can't. Or with holidays. Don't really keep the music, just change the pictures. I'm not muted, Flash fan. But hello. What's up, Annabelle? Gotta catch my breath. Good grief. My husband came home and it's like, hey, do you think we have time to do this? I'm like, it's going to be close, but let's go for it, shall we? Let's do it. So we did. And then of course, you get behind all the slow people, like they're really not going slow, but they're going slow for what you need to do. So get out of the way. Alrighty. All right. I think I've got everything. I did not back from a bank robbing. Of all things. That's not it. That wasn't it. I have to I may kind of jump off here for just a few minutes because once we get started, because I have to, my daughter is flying in tonight. Her flight's already been delayed, but I was waiting on Amazon too to deliver some stuff that I need for her. So I need to, it got here right before we got here. I would, hey, Baker. I was not smack talking you yesterday. Brandon tricked me into thinking he was MLS yesterday, which was not very nice. Also, I said hi to Brandon in your chat this morning and he completely ignored me. So you hang around however long you want, Baker, but you probably should go to bed soon. Beginning to think you're like a vampire and you never sleep. All right, so back to Betty. We are watching, I know most of you know, but if anybody's new here and they don't know, back to Betty Broderick trial. This is a trial from 1991. She is accused of unaliving her ex-husband, his new wife of 6 months, the much younger and prettier. I'm not saying it. That's the way it is. But that's probably the way Betty saw it because she was quite a bit younger than them. She unalived them while they were sleeping in their, after she broke into their home and went up to their bedroom, put some projectiles into them. I think they were all very, very mean and nasty to each other. I think they all just knew how to press each other's buttons in the worst possible ways. And they did constantly for a very long time. And Betty just absolutely snapped and broke. And here we are. I don't think any of them are innocent in their actions. But you can't unalive people. As much as you want to sometimes, you just can't. I mean, you can. You go to prison. So don't. That's all I'm saying. He was asked, oops. Oh. Brandon was asking for you when you ended today. I said, Gabby forced you to stream late, so I can't redirect to you. Well, thank you for redirecting to me last night. I do appreciate it. But he didn't get out. Flashman, stop lying. Hey, Lauren. How are you? Good to see you. All right, I think we're ready to roll. So we will get to cross-examination tonight. I don't know exactly how much longer this attorney is going to ask irrelevant questions. I think we're kind of building up to the crime, alleged crime. We get in trouble. But if you remember last night when it abruptly ended, she's crying, and he's building up to, I think, her act of unaliving. So I think we're there. Got everything boosted. I really am like trying to get settled down. Like, settle down. I'm here. It's never a lie. It's called a little white lie. Okay. It's like being a little bit pregnant. That was weird yesterday when the court TV people started speaking. I'm like, be quiet. We can't hear what's going on. It was so weird. And then they wouldn't stop talking. What are you guys doing? All right, I'm pushing play. Let's do this. Let me make sure that's up. All right, here we go.
Did you have in your car any keys that you thought might fit one of the doors of Dan's house?
Yes, I had a key ring with a funny looking key on it.
Okay. Was it because of the shape of the key that you thought it was that it would fit Dan's house?
It was a very strange looking key, and long before I was informed, or the kids told me, that Dan's keys were very funny looking, and I knew Dan.
Well, Lauren, I might have it figured out by 6:45. What is happening? I am sharing it. It's there. Why is there no sound? Everything's up. All right, let me jump ahead and see if there's sound up here.
Go into that. Did you then go into their bedroom?
Yes.
And what did you do when you went into their bedroom?
No, it didn't freeze. I'm trying to find the sound.
Was there any reason that you were scared that Dan was going to grab?
I have no clue. We will try to fix it. If you can hear, I can't hear it. Sound was good. I have zero sound on my end. Zero. All right. Well, hang on a sec. I'll figure it out. As long as you guys can hear it. Hey, Sharon. Okay, here we go.
Did you have in your car any keys that you thought might fit one of the doors of Dan's house?
Yes, I had a key ring with a funny looking key on it.
Okay. Was it because of the shape of the key that you thought it was that it would fit Dan's house?
It was a very strange looking key, and long before I was informed, or the kids told me, that Dan's keys were very funny looking, and I knew Dan had funny looking keys. It was a good chance that was his funny looking key.
Okay. Did you use the key to get into the house?
Yes.
Okay. And what were you going to do if the key didn't work?
Got in the house anyway. We always got in the house.
Did you want to wake Dan up when you got there? And when you first got there, did you want Dan to know that you were driving up?
You're not going to go to a meeting.
Understand. What was your feelings about Dan knowing that you got there?
I wanted him to know I was there, and that I had the gun before he jumped on the phone and reported me, which is what he would have done if he saw me coming from the street, or if I rang the front doorbell.
Did you ring the doorbell at all?
No.
Do you remember which door you went into?
The utility door of the house, which is mostly the traffic door.
Do you remember driving to his house that day?
No.
Do you know what route you took?
I don't. I remember leaving my house, backing out of the driveway and leaving. I remember that, but I don't remember at which point I decided where I was when I decided not to go to the beach and go to Dan's house. All the way to Dan's house, I was just thinking, I've just got to make this stop. I just got to make this stop. I'm not going to live another day like this. I can't wake up just being absolutely at his mercy anymore. So all the way there, I just kept thinking, I've got to make this stop. I've got to make this stop. And I don't remember what even road I took to get there.
How would you describe, was it affecting you physically? I mean, were you clear thinking and seeing things clearly at that
The
time?
only way I can explain it,
Sustained.
How would you describe how the world seemed to you at that time?
Sustained.
Well, Your Honor, I would like to make an offer of proof why it hasn't been.
another question.
If I'm referring to how she was physically seeing the world at that time, it may be different than she's answered before.
Okay, go ahead. You can answer that.
I know how to describe it now. So there's all these thoughts just churning in my head, and there was so much going on inside my head. That's kind of like my eyeballs were turned backwards, and the whole world was inside my head because all this anguish, and so I wasn't seeing anguish and kind of darkness and crazy thoughts. Felt like you were in hell, actually.
Okay. When you got to the house, went in the back door, do you remember where you went?
Upstairs, I know that, but I don't know.
Okay.
The door to the bedroom was closed, but the next door was open, so I went in that door
Okay. And where does that door lead to?
to what they call a TV room, but it's part of the bedroom suite on that side of the house.
And was anybody up at that time that you saw?
No,
Do you remember, were you holding a gun at that time?
I don't remember. I guess so.
What did, when you went into the TV room, what was the next thing that you?
All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to leave and be right back. So give me a second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I hope that this fixes it. Technical difficulties is putting it mildly, Flashman. All right, let's try this again. Come on, Betty. Talk to me.
You did.
The TV room door was wide open, and then the door to their bedroom was part open. It wasn't closed. It was
No
like a
idea.
jar.
Okay. And did you go into that? Did you then go into their bedroom?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do when you went into their bedroom?
Well, the motion that I made, although I don't think it was a big motion, the movement that I made into their bedroom woke up and they moved and somebody screamed, "Call the police." And I said, "No." And I just fired the gun and this big noise went off. And then I grabbed the phone and got the hell out of there. But I wasn't even in that room. I mean, it just was an explosion. Just, I moved, they moved, the gun went off, and it was like, ah! And it was that fast.
I want to go through this. I want to go at least as much as we can, step by step. How would you describe your memory of that event? Do you have a clear memory of everything that happened?
What I can tell you in words now is it seems like a slideshow where slides are missing. You know, I remember driving up to the front of the house. I remember the front of the house, but I don't remember if I went to the front door, and I don't remember going around. And then I know I was upstairs, and I remember opening the door to the bedroom. So I see myself doing that, but then I don't see anything else. And then I know I grabbed the phone, but I don't remember leaving the house or running down the stairs or anything. So it's like there's these spots missing. It's like a flash of this, and then she's over there, and there's a flash of that, a flash of this, and that's what I told people later. Is I didn't see anything in that room.
Now, when you first went into the door, do you remember do you remember what happened when you first went into the door of the bedroom?
Well, I hardly even got in. I opened the door and I stepped into the bedroom, like one step.
What did you do at that point?
Well, I was gonna say, Dan, wake up. I have to talk to you.
Did you say something?
I don't know.
What happened at that point?
I walked in and they moved away from me toward the other place. And I heard Linda.
Yeah, the video feed issues are on their end, not mine so far. Except for the sound one. I'll blame them. Yes, Sharon, they like to, Brandon likes to especially pick on me too. It's okay. Laughter is good. I can handle it most of the time, not all the time. Yes, you do joke here. It's okay. I'm good. I'll be even better. I'm like missing the best freaking part of this. This is crazy. But I will let you guys listen as I try to figure it out.
Say, call the police.
Now, do you remember them talking to you all, saying something to you other than the?
No, nobody said anything to me, I don't think.
Okay. And what happened when they went towards? What's the next thing you remember after they went towards the phone and said, call the police?
I kind of screamed, like this huge scream, like, no! And the gun went off. And I just remember one time and one noise. But I know that I must have done that because you have to do that on the gun. But it was so fast. I just went, ah!
Now, did you scream out loud?
I felt like I made a huge scream, but I don't know if I made any noise. It was just all sensation. You move in, and then they moved, and then there was this huge explosion and scream, and all at once.
Hey, MLS, I think. Is this really you? Brandon tricked me last night into thinking you were here. And you weren't here. This is Betty Broderick. She was, she allegedly unalived her husband and her ex-husband and his new wife of 6 months back in 1989. This is her retrial back in 1991. They could not that they were hung on guilt or innocence, but on degree of guilt. So this is her retrial. She is obviously on the stand on direct examination, and we are almost to cross, and I can't wait. I swear everything's falling apart. Sorry. Like first day. His wife, her ex-husband, his new wife they're in their late 30s. She was 21 when he met her. They were not nice to each other at all. They weren't innocent. You can't unalive people, but she did. No, it's not your phone. Like, I don't know what's going on. I cannot hear the screen I'm sharing, but you guys can all hear it, so that's fine. I've already left the studio, try to figure it out. Then my mic just cut out. I have no idea. I have gremlins. In my computer. I don't know, but I'm going to let you guys listen, and I'll figure it out, maybe.
Do you remember actually pulling the trigger?
No.
Is that a gun where you have to pull the trigger?
Yes, I asked people that day, do you have to pull the trigger? And they told me that you had to, but I don't remember pulling it even the first time.
But you remember a large bang?
Yes.
Okay. What's the next thing you remember after that?
Is grabbing the phone so that he couldn't get on it because Dan was trying to get on the phone and grabbed the phone, and I tried to get out of the room and it kind of jerked, and I jerked it back and pulled it out of the wall, and I think I threw it on the top of the stairs. I don't know. I may have just put it there.
Now, after you heard the boom, were you out of bullets?
I assume so, yes,
And how did you know that?
because there was no more noise and the gun was clicking.
Did you hear the gun click?
I don't remember the gun clicking, no. I just know that there was this huge noise and then there was no more noise.
And then after the noise, when you said the gun was clicking, was that after the noise? The clicking sound of the gun?
I guess.
Objection, Your Honor. She said she didn't remember any clicking.
Sustained.
Do you remember pulling the trigger after? Do you remember pulling the trigger at all?
No.
What did you, now, when you indicated, when was it that you thought about what was the thought about the phone that made you grab the phone?
Objection, yes.
Sustained.
May I have that read back to me, Your Honor, so I can, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yes, please do the first part, but the second part's not happening. Unless it's just fans, like actual fans. I hope their video clears up. This is annoying.
Was there any reason that you were scared that Dan was going to grab the phone?
Yes, because every time I went to talk to him, he'd call the police and have me arrested on the restraining order for trying to talk to him for being within 100 yards of his house.
And now at that point in time, when you left, do you know whether anyone was hit?
No, I thought Dan was after me.
Okay. Now, did Dan say, do you remember Dan sitting up in bed and saying, okay, you shot me, I'm dead?
No,
Have you ever said that? Have you ever repeated that to anybody?
I know Lily says I said that. So I must have said that, but I heard Lily say I said that. I don't remember that.
Okay. And have you repeated it since then to people?
Yes,
And why was that?
because Lily said I said it. It must have happened. Or I must have said it.
Do you remember where you went after that?
Well, I had nowhere to go. I mean, I was afraid Dan was after me. I was afraid when I went into that house of confronting Dan, and then when I left, I thought he was after me. And so I thought, oh man, you can't go home because he's going to call the police, and the police are going to be waiting at my house, and I didn't want to scare the boys and everything, so I didn't go home. So I ended up at a phone in Claremont, at a gas station in Claremont,
Do you know how long?
and I didn't know what to do or where to go or who to talk to or what to do.
Do you remember how long you drove around before you got to that gas station?
No,
How long were you at that gas station?
I still don't even know where the gas station was. It's somewhere in Claremont.
Okay. But when you arrived at the gas station, were you there very long?
I don't remember.
Did you make a call right away?
I don't remember if it was right away. I did remember, I remembered one phone number.
Okay. And did you call some people from the gas station?
I only remember dialing and calling and talking to Diane Black.
Do you remember calling Lee?
Yes, later.
When you called, where did you go from there? Did you go over to someone's house?
I called Lee and I told her I was in trouble or something. I don't remember really what I told her. But I said that I'll try and get to your house. And if I don't get to your house, that means they've arrested me because the Suburban is real big. And there weren't many cars out on a Sunday morning. And it has a load 'em up license plate. That's what it says. So it'd be real easy to get pulled over. And I said, if I don't arrive, honey, it's because the police got me. But I'll try and get to your house. So I went to Lee's house. And the reason for that is Dan didn't know where Lee lived.
Thanks, Flash Fan. You're pretty awesome too. Thank you for all the work you do for me. I do appreciate it. And thank you for being a member for 3 months.
So if he was sending the cops to get me, he couldn't send them to Lee's house because he didn't know where Lee lived. Nobody knew where Lee lived except me.
When you got to Lee's house, how would you describe how you felt?
Well, whenever, especially this day, I felt bad that I was involving her, but at the same, I tried to pretend like everything was okay. I guess, I don't know. I got there, I remember I took my camera out of the car, I gave her my camera, and I told her that I shot this gun at Dan's house and I have to go give myself into the police. So I took off all my jewelry and stuff, but I know I did that, but I don't remember doing it. And then I sent Lee from her apartment to go check on Danny and Rhett, because I was worried that the cops were there and that the boys were afraid and stuff. So Jason and Lee went to check on Danny and Rhett.
Did you eventually turn yourself in that day?
Yes.
And were you taken to jail after you were arrested? Were you taken
Yes,
after you turned yourself in, were you eventually taken to Las Colinas?
Yes.
Okay. And have you had conversations with a number of people since you've been in jail?
Yes.
When you first got to jail, how were you feeling?
I don't remember getting taken there. I know they put me in a suicide cell, stark naked for the first night I was there. And I was real shocking, and I don't remember being there or much of what happened. I just went where people told me to go.
Now that first day or the first couple of weeks that you were there, how were you feeling emotionally or mentally?
It's hard to I was very confused, but I was safe in jail. You know, they locked the rest of the world out when they locked me in this little corner cell. And that was good for me because then Dan couldn't get me. And I could just be safe in there, and I really liked that nobody could get me.
Yes.
One more.
Sure.
How much longer are you going to be?
Not very long, around 5 or 10 minutes.
It's okay, keep going.
No. I know, it's driving me nuts. I don't like how he's staring at church lady either. Oh, don't apologize to him, church lady.
The first 2 or 3 months that you were in jail, were you able to come to grips with what had happened?
No, I wanted to. I wasn't able to deal with it. I wasn't able to hug my children or talk to my children. I wasn't able to go to Dan's funeral. I wasn't able to tell anybody
Welcome
how
back.
sorry I was that all this had happened. Anybody was affected by it. I haven't been able to get in touch with any of the people who matter in this case.
Were you able to talk to the boys about what was going on?
No, Dan's brother took them out of town right away, and I was kept from them for almost 2 years, and I wasn't allowed to send birthday cards or Christmas cards. I haven't had a phone conversation, but this summer in August, I was able to see them for an hour or two, but I wasn't allowed to mention anything. I had to act like that nothing had happened. So I really want to talk to my kids about this and to a lot of other people, but they listen to all my phone conversations and they copy every letter that goes in and out. And it's that, everyone's afraid everything will get twisted around and used against them. And so none of us have been able to deal honestly with a lot of the things that need to be dealt with.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I would like a picture mark this next to where Your Honor.
Triple line?
Yes.
Eight by 10 black and white photograph, Mr. Early?
Yes, of the defendants.
All right, somewhere.
Showing you what has been marked triple I for identification. Is this a picture of you?
Yes.
And is this what you came to look like at the time of your arrest in 1989?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our lunch recess at this time.
He's done. Holy cow. Lauren, I couldn't hear some of it. So you missed her fake waterworks, like Flash Fan said, working up through her committing the act, going to jail, being stark naked, her words, for the first night because they were scared she was going to self-delete. And I think you got in from there. Sharon, things are weird today. I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry you got bumped out. It's a weird stream. I'm just warning you. Yes, I'm ready. Let's do this. Judge's gonna be right back. I love how our breaks aren't really one.
Apologize for going into the lunch hour, but our sidebar was because we knew we were close to the end, and the attorneys and I felt it was better to finish up. But I hope I didn't inconvenience anybody by doing that, and if I did, I apologize. We'll be in recess until
We have a little extra,
2 o'clock.
a regular lunch hour.
2 o'clock? You want longer?
Yes.
2 o'clock, all right. Recess till 2 o'clock. Please remember the admonition to discuss the case among yourselves and allow anyone else to discuss it with you nor form any opinions until it's finally submitted to you. See you at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Isn't it true that when you talked to Deputy Woods, that you told Deputy Woods, for example, one day after testifying, that it was a good day today. I had the jury eating out of my hands?
No.
Deputy Woods was the deputy that was responsible for getting you prepared and ready to come to court each day, correct?
Yes.
And are you indicating that you never had any discussions with Deputy Woods about how you were impressing the last jury?
I don't remember those discussions. I don't remember any specific discussions about that.
Do you remember talking to her about how important it was for you to give the right impression to the jury and telling her about disagreements that you had with your counsel about what kind of clothes you should wear? And the fact that wearing bright clothes wouldn't be a good impression, it would make you look too happy, and that your counsel wanted you to only wear dark clothes and drab clothes to make you look depressed.
No, Deputy Woods ended up picking out.
Excuse me, if you just answer my question, did you ever have any conversation like that with Deputy Woods?
No.
You have been described by people who know you well as being a good actress, haven't you?
I've never heard that.
Never heard that Dr. Jacobson, doctor that you saw for quite a period of time, described you as a great actress?
I've never heard that he said that, no.
That you had several different personas that you could display?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this.
Same.
You indicated that just this morning before we broke, that you had not been able to tell anyone how sorry you were. It is true that since you've been in jail, in fact, very shortly after the time you were put in jail, that you started writing letters to people, right?
I've written letters from jail, yes.
You've written probably hundreds of letters from jail.
Maybe over the 2 years.
And even in the course of a couple of weeks to a couple of months, right after November the 5th, you wrote many letters every day to friends, to family, to newspaper reporters, to celebrities. You were writing many letters during those. Let's take the 3 months after you were incarcerated, weren't you?
I don't remember specifically, but I have written letters, yes.
Well, you're not, are you disputing what I'm saying, that you have written probably at least 100 letters during that period of time?
In the 3 months after I was there, I wouldn't know. I don't know of the numbers.
Did you write many letters to your friends and to your family?
In that specific period of time?
Yes.
I don't remember in that specific period of time who I would have written to.
Did you write letters to newspaper reporters?
I corrected some articles. Yes, I corrected articles that I read that were wrong.
Okay. And did you write letters to celebrities, for example?
I don't know what you're referring
Did you write to Cindy Garvey?
Oh, I don't remember. Did I? I don't know.
There was nothing
Oprah.
ever preventing you from saying anything about your feelings about what had happened in any of those letters that you wrote, was there?
No.
You were free to express your feelings about what had happened and how you felt about it, correct?
Yes.
And you had many phone calls, many phone conversations with people shortly after your incarceration, in which you were free to express your feelings about what had happened.
Well, I've already testified I wasn't free to express any feelings really because I knew the letters were copied coming in and going out and that the phone calls are listened to constantly. So I was, and even the visits are listened to. So everyone was pretty paranoid about that.
You were advised that the phone calls were not monitored. Your phone calls were never monitored. And you
Oh,
were
I don't know
advised-
that.
Okay. Are you saying that you felt that you couldn't express any of your feelings about what had happened because you felt that your letters were being monitored?
Yes.
And how would that hurt you or your case to say that you felt sorry for what you had done?
How would it hurt my case to say
How did
that?
the fact that you were being monitored prevent you from expressing your feelings like you've indicated? No one would let you express your feelings.
Because it just inhibited everything. I didn't know who would interpret those and get copies and switch everything around.
So are you indicating that you felt inhibited about talking to people about what occurred?
Yes,
You did write a letter, for example, to Amy Wallace shortly after you were in jail, correct?
that would have been one of the corrections of an article, I believe.
And in that letter, you start off by saying, I have pages and pages of notes setting the story straight, incident by incident. In most cases, you have the general idea, but the chronology and the facts are all twisted around. I'll call. We can talk. Neighbors and friends have bits and pieces. Only I know the whole truth. Are you saying that you were inhibited about telling her the whole truth as you saw it?
I was just correcting her article. Whatever she said that I felt was wrong, I wanted corrected.
Okay. Are you saying that you were inhibited about saying anything that you wanted to correct anything that had been
Yes.
written about you?
Yes, because I wouldn't have expressed the feelings that I'm talking about to a strange newspaper reporter.
While we're on that subject, we'll come back, but when you say that you were correcting things that had been written, in fact, you made a specific correction with Amy Wallace about what Dan Broderick had said after you shot him. You indicated that Lee, who had testified that he said, okay, you shot me, I'm dead.
Mhm.
You called up Amy Wallace and you told her, no, that's not right. That's not what he said. He said, okay, you got me, I'm dead,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Didn't you just testify before lunch that you didn't remember him saying anything to that effect?
I didn't remember him sitting up in bed and saying anything like that, no.
You don't remember testifying last time?
But I remember,
Excuse me. Do you remember testifying the last time you testified that he put his hands up and he said, okay, you got me?
yes.
Didn't you just testify earlier today that you didn't remember him saying anything like that?
Well, I don't know. What I really testified to is I don't really know what happened in that room. It was all these flashes of things.
Excuse me, you answer the question. Let me just ask you this. If you don't really know what happened in that room, how was it you could write or call Amy Wallace and correct her about what had been said about what happened in that room?
Because at that time, way back then, I thought Dan said that.
Okay, so way back then, when you talked to Amy Wallace back in March of 1990, you had a clear recollection then of what had occurred in that room. Is that what you're saying?
No. In March, no. When Lee said that in the very beginning, in November, that I said that, we discussed it. I said, I couldn't have said that because she said I didn't know if I shot anybody, so he couldn't have said that.
Did you not call up Amy Wallace and tell her, correct her? He didn't say you shot me, correcting one of her daughters. He said, okay.
Brandon, I looked first thing this morning and you were not banned. I don't have anybody banned. I told you that last night. I don't have anybody hidden. I have one thing hidden. It's Streamlabs. So that bot thingy doesn't keep popping up in my chat every 6 months. But that's it. So you were not banned. Also, Brandon, I said hello to you in Baker's chat this morning. You ignored me, so whatever. Flashman, can you imagine if she was like, I'm not gonna answer your questions. Oh man. Nobody banned him, Flashman. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Brandon. I fixed it and I broke everything else. You want one day of free membership? Well, you gifted yourself 2 last night. Which was funny. You probably didn't think so. Good evening, Brandon. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know you could gift yourself memberships. Found that out last night. Brandon got 2. Yeah, that was insane when her attorney was telling her not to answer the questions. Yeah, it is just pointless. Yeah. Nope, I get it. I didn't know you could do that. Maybe it's just you because you're special. All right. I have a feeling this is just going to keep escalating between these two women. And there, make no mistake, that this this prosecutor was not going to let second chair cross-examine her. She was going to get under Betty's skin, and she was going to enjoy it. Not much. Whoops. Linda was very pretty. Like I said, she was the younger, prettier version. Because Betty was pretty. When Betty was younger, I sound really bad right now. I should probably stop talking. But Betty was really pretty when she was younger. I thought I muted my phone and didn't have, whatever. I'm going to stop talking there. You didn't miss a lot. She went through where she committed the act. She doesn't remember. She got arrested. She had to be naked in jail because they thought she was going to self-delete. And we are just getting started pretty much on cross. They're asking her right now because she wrote hundreds of letters to celebrities like Oprah. They haven't named her yet, but she did an interview on Oprah. Reporters, journalists, whatever. And she's talking to her about that right now, about how she didn't feel like she could say she was sorry for what she did because they were listening to her and they were reading her mail. So kind of a dumb reason. Yeah, she's not taking anything from her. And good to see you, Larissa, right? I hope I'm saying your name right. Yeah, I thought that too. Good for her that she let go, and the easiest way out was a hacksaw. I mean, listen, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, you'd be crushed if somebody left you for a younger person. I think a woman would take it harder. That's all I'm going to say. We would be harder on ourselves. Larissa, I got it. Thank you for correcting me because I would rather say it right. I think I'm saying it right. We are very hard on ourselves and we're mean to each other. We are horrible. Oh, Brandon, I am 100. Gosh dang. Sorry. I am with you. I've always told my husband, like, you leave, that's it. I'm single the rest of my life. I will just go do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. That's the way it will go. And there will be no other marriage, and that's the end of it. Let me make sure this is the end of it. Of course, I hit the wrong button. I think I'm losing it today. Your ex was angry when you married an older woman? Well, we are hard to make happy. Thanks, Sharon. It's so hot here. Flashman went to school with a Larissa. She was a biter. A reset. Betty's haircut not working for her. Don't approve. She could do better. Well, in 1991, that's probably the way it was. I know that's the way it was for a woman of her age. You're a girl's girl unless you're anything like Jen McCabe or Kay Roberts. Ugh. What's a biter? I'll let Flashman answer that one for you. I'm going to push play.
Hey, you got me.
No, that's the
Okay.
answer.
Stand.
You called Amy Wallace anyway to correct what your daughter had said, is that correct?
Your Honor has an answer.
We'll do an answer that. Yes or no?
Yes, I guess, if you said I did.
And it made, you talked to her about several corrections that you thought that had been in the press that you didn't think were correct, and you wanted to correct the record, right?
Yes.
And Amy Wallace was not the only reporter that you talked to shortly after committing these crimes, correct? You talked to many reporters.
I don't
Is that
remember if I talked, other reporters came to talk to me.
Have you
John
given-
Gaines, I've spoken to John Gaines, but I don't know when that started.
Okay, you've indicated you've given interviews to John Gaines from the San Diego Union, correct?
Last year, yes.
And you gave an interview or several interviews to Alan Abrahamson from the LA Times, correct?
On the telephone,
On the telephone or in person? Did you give an interview with Alan Abrahamson?
I've spoken to him, yes.
And you've talked to Irene Schaefer from the La Jolla Light?
Oh, Irene doesn't work at the La Jolla Light.
Okay. Did you talk to Cynthia Queen from the La Jolla Light?
Yes,
And you talked to a reporter from the New York Times?
yes.
And you talked to a reporter, author who wrote an article in the Ladies' Home Journal?
I don't really remember
Kathleen
if I
Neumeyer?
spoke to her on the phone, maybe in New York.
You talked to Joyce Wadler from People Magazine?
No,
Did you give an interview to anyone from People
he
Magazine?
was a man.
Lorenzo Bennett?
I think that was his name, yes.
And in none of those interviews, those people have all written articles about what you've said. In none of those interviews did they ever say that you expressed any remorse for these killings, did they?
I don't know.
Are you indicating that you expressed remorse to these people and they didn't, and they said the opposite in their reports?
The remorse that I'm talking about was, what I was sorry for was to Dan's parents, to Dan's brothers and sisters and stuff. I haven't spoken to those people.
Was there
To
anything
Linda's family, I haven't spoken to them.
Ms. Broderick, was there anything that prevented you from writing a letter to any of Dan's family or parents or any of Linda's family since the time that you committed these crimes?
Yes,
When you talked to the author from People Magazine, which was just last month, isn't it true that you indicated absolutely no remorse, that Linda knowingly dated a married man, that you felt equally unconcerned about the death of your ex-husband? I wasn't the one who had the affair. I won't accept the blame for what happened. Didn't you say that?
I don't remember specifically saying that. If he says I said it, I said it.
Well, would you like me to show it to you to see if it refreshes your recollection?
No, I'm sure if it's written there, it says it.
You didn't have just one interview with Amy Wallace. You had numerous interviews with her, correct? Before she wrote a large article about you.
Brandon, I don't know that I would call her. She's going on vacation. She's coming here. I mean, it's vacation, I guess, for her. But she's not going anywhere exotic. She's coming to my house. You asked your wife to go to Portugal for a long weekend, and oh my Lord, she didn't want to go? It was nice of you to ask. And yet, Larissa, I would bring the 80s back if I could. My husband would bring the hair, big hair, not her hair, but the big, like the hair I had back. And also the heels with jeans. He just, and mini skirts, which are still around. They're just not the 80s. But he'd be partial to probably the 90s if he grew up then.
So in the very beginning, so I would have talked to her. I don't remember how many times she might have come there, or I mostly talked to her on the phone, I think.
Is it correct when she describes that over the next 6 months you called and wrote often, always eager to talk?
Sure, I don't know.
I'm just asking you if that's a correct indication of how many times you talked.
6 months from when it happened to when she wrote the article.
Yes.
Probably, yes.
And she too indicated in her article that described you as being intelligent, angry, and without remorse.
Were those her words?
Yes.
Well, if that's what she thought, that's what she thought.
Well, are you indicating that you indicated something different to her, that you expressed remorse?
She
to her?
didn't give me an intelligence test. She didn't know if I had any remorse. Those are her words. She didn't know if I was any of those things.
Well, she described that when she talked to you the very first meeting, that you insisted that all your actions were justified. You said, quote, "He went off with the bimbo at 40 driving a red Corvette. Haven't we heard this before?" Did you say that to Amy Wallace?
I did say that.
You also told Amy Wallace that you were upset that people were mourning Dan and Linda. Didn't you?
I was upset at the way that the funeral was handled, yes.
You said, "It always makes me mad when people call them the victims. You're tired of hearing people mourn Dan and Linda." Did you say that?
I thought the way the funeral was handled was wrong.
And it wasn't that you were upset that you couldn't go to the funeral. What you were upset about, and that you expressed to several people, was that Dan had gotten full rights in the Catholic Church, and you didn't think that was appropriate because he was divorced.
No, I was very upset I didn't go to the funeral. I would have handled the funeral extremely differently, however.
Did you tell Amy Wallace that all of your actions were justified?
Referring to which all of my actions? I don't know. If she
Did
said
you
it
ever
was a
make that
quotation,
statement to Amy Wallace that all of your actions were justified?
I don't know.
And when you were in jail, you also made statements similar to the ones that you made to Maria Peralta. You made statements like that to other people. It wasn't just Maria Peralta that you talked about your feelings about Linda, correct?
Excuse me?
Did you make statements about your feelings about Linda to other people in jail?
I guess so. I mean,
Did you tell Deputy Woods, for example, similar to what you said to Maria Peralta, that Linda was, quote, "a fucking bitch. She was living in my house, driving my car, sleeping in my bed"?
Your Honor, all facts, it assumes facts, not evidence.
Sustain.
I'm asking her if she said that.
Your Honor, it assumes facts, not evidence, that those are Maria Peralta's words.
No, I'm talking about a statement you made to Deputy Woods.
Rephrase it.
Did you make a statement to Deputy Woods that Linda is a fucking bitch? She was living in my bed, driving my car, sleeping in my bed.
no, because those are not true, and I didn't make them to Maria Peralta, and I didn't make them to Deputy Wood.
Did you appear to Deputy Woods to be happy about what you had done and that you were going to get off?
During the 2 years that I've been there, I've appeared to be happy, I've appeared to be sad, I've appeared to be upset. If I appeared a certain way to Deputy Woods at a certain time, I'm sure during certain times I was there, I appeared to be happy, but she may not have known why.
In relation to killing Dan and Linda Broderick, did you appear to be happy about
No,
How about to Dr. Robinson, the psychiatrist that was there at Las Colinas jail?
I don't even know Dr. Robinson.
Dr. Robinson, he's a black gentleman, often wears a cap on his head.
I've never met Dr. Robinson. Never seen a man of that description.
Well, you've indicated that you've been happy at times in jail. In fact, you gave an interview to Alan Abrahamson where you told him that you wanted the world to know how happy you were in jail, right? Do you remember doing that?
I don't know if those were my words.
Do you remember telling him that you wanted everyone to know that you were doing fabulously well, that it's been wonderful? Prison is a country club?
No, because I was never in prison, and I wouldn't have said prison was a country club.
Would you have said that prison is a country club?
How about now? Would you say prison is a country club now? How would you answer that question now, Betty? What's up, Bri? Yes, better late than never. Have just got into cross. Whew, she's dropped some F-bombs. She like the go by yourself drop, so I bought some golf clubs. Don't use them on her, but I would stream your trial if you did. All I've seen is a blurry photo of Linda. I think I might, hang on, I'll look. I may be able to find one. I'm kind of scared to touch anything. The stream started off so bad. So bad. But I'll look.
the tennis court, swimming
I'm
pool.
going to object, it's irrelevant.
Sustained.
Would you have said anything to him about the fact that being in jail was early retirement?
I'm going to object.
We're going to answer that. It's yes or no.
Maybe.
Would you have said to him that you don't have to worry about your car getting fixed? I can read, I can write, I can converse with people. No responsibilities?
There was a period of time after the
Excuse me,
first.
did you make that statement to Abraham?
May have.
And would that have been approximately March of 1991? That sound right to you?
Yes, it would be in the period I was trying to tell you about.
I want to back up and ask you a few questions about some of the things you said when you were describing your early married years with Mr. Broderick. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You testified that during the time that you were in law school, or that Dan Broderick was in law school, you described an apartment that you lived in, and you described this very ugly, rotten place that you had to live in outside of Cambridge, right?
Correct.
You didn't tell us about the fact that during the second and the third year of law school, that you moved out to a very nice suburb in Marlborough and lived in a very nice apartment.
No, I
those
did
Your Honor,
state that.
Objection, that is argumentative.
Sustained.
I said it had to do with getting a car, remember?
Okay.
Because we didn't have a car in the beginning, and I said we got a car, and then we moved.
And during the second and third year, then you lived in a very nice apartment complex in a very nice suburb. Is that correct?
Different places, because we had to move out in the summer to go to LA and come back to a different place. 2 different apartment complexes in Marlborough, Massachusetts, correct.
And it was about 40 miles away from Cambridge. Dan had to commute about 40 miles every day on his motorcycle to go to law school so that you and the children could be in a nice suburb, correct?
Yes, remember I said that. We had an apartment above ground.
Okay. And during that time, you had indicated, and you can correct me obviously if I'm wrong, but you indicated that you were totally isolated from people when you were living during those years in law school. Correct? Didn't you say that?
Well, what kinds of people? There were other people living in the apartment that were adjacent to our names, and I didn't spend time with them, and I never met them. So I was not physically, there were other people there. I didn't happen to know them.
You testified that you were isolated, though, from
Yes, I felt-
friends and people during the second, third year of law school?
I felt isolated, yes.
Isn't it true that you lived very close to a couple of good friends from a college who came over and visited you almost every weekend?
That was Dan's friend and his wife. Yes, we knew those people.
Jiggs McCulloch and Sandy McCulloch, they were good friends of yours as well, weren't they?
They became friends, yes.
And they would come over just about every weekend. They would visit. Dan and Jiggs would take care of the kids so that you and Sandy could go out shopping and have free time together. Right? Now you said that one of the things that you were really looking forward to after you got married, one of the goals you had was to get to Europe, right?
Right.
And you did get to Europe in 1981. You were able to take a trip to Europe with Dan.
Right.
And then in 1983, you were able to take another trip to Europe with Dan.
Right.
So you reached those goals as far as things that you've been looking forward to
Right.
do with Dan.
Mhm.
When was it that you took the Caribbean cruise with Dan?
Dan and I never took a Caribbean cruise.
Did you ever go to the Caribbean with Dan?
We went to the Caribbean on our honeymoon to St. Thomas.
Did you go to a trip to the Bahamas in the 1980s ever?
No.
How about a trip to Cancun
Yes, that was a Club Med trip into Mexico.
and a trip to Alisal?
That was a family trip to a ranch before we joined Warner's, yes.
And when was that trip to Alisal?
That was when I had 2 broken arms, so whenever we can put that in there.
It was in the late 70s?
No, it would have been after Rhett was born, so it was 80 or 81.
You said, you described the fact that Dan Broderick wouldn't.
I want to know why she had 2 broken arms. That's like, you don't just have them. Like, you don't just wake up and be like, my arms are broken. Like, what'd she do? Skiing accident. Although she'd probably say, like, Dan pushed me down the stairs. Something. I don't know. You bet she joined the Mile High Club. Well, those bathrooms are small. You broke both your elbows. Ow. Sounds horrible. I can't put my arms down. There's so many things that Betty could have done, and she just went right over it. Like, come on. Not nice. Carmen better not be getting drunk on a plane. She's got to come here. And she's going to get here in the middle of the night. Ouch. You guys are painful. Collarbones, elbows, grief.
Let you be involved in the financial decisions, and that he was very dictatorial about that. Isn't it true that you have previously said that you happily let him take over all of the decisions?
I've always said that, yes.
You said not being involved in the money saved me from a lot of anxiety, saved me from a lot of worrying.
That's exactly right. It did. And
So
I
that
never
was-
argued with that arrangement when we were married.
Okay. So it wasn't that Dan was being dictatorial and telling you that you couldn't have anything to do with the finances. It was something that you wanted him to take care of.
Well, I never asked him to do it. No, it was an unspoken agreement in our marriage from day one that he would handle the rent and the insurance and all those things. And it's what he called, women's work and men's work. I mean, that was the man earned the wages and paid the bills, and the woman took care of the food and the laundry and the children in the house, and never the twain shall meet. I didn't touch anything to do with the money, and he never had anything to do with the laundry or the kids or the food. That was women's work. But I did not argue with that arrangement.
And you were happy about that arrangement.
That was
an
our
arrangement that you wanted.
arrangement, and it worked well for a very long time, yes. I did not argue about it.
You also indicated that Dan had
Some
always
hurt things,
been an
Brandon.
extremely hard worker, right?
Very much so, yes.
Always, from the
That's
very
Iris.
beginning.
Medical school, law school, everything.
How you doing?
So, and you described that he basically worked 7 days and nights a week. He'd fall asleep at night with a legal file in his chest and wake up in the morning and do it again.
Absolutely. Even when he was a student, he worked that hard.
So during the marriage, he wasn't out there squandering your money. He wasn't losing it in Vegas. He wasn't womanizing. He was providing for you and the children and the family.
Yes,
correct?
we both worked very hard, and we did without a lot for many years so that he could get his, yes. Those are all correct statements.
Well, Brandon, it's
You
not hard.
indicated just recently.
My Brandon is standing right here. You just can't see him. Carmen is the only one flying because Brandon lives here. Not at my house, but he lives by me. Iris, yep. I would warn that flight. Free. That's weird. Don't say that. Don't make me say that. Free says, hi, Daddy. I can't. I can't turn it around. And Gabby is my third. She's not my biological daughter. She's my adopted daughter that I just adopted when we met a year and a half ago. Yes, I mean, I do have 35 kids. We're around somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, and then you've got Bree, technically the third. So I guess Gabby'd be 4. And then I've got my granddaughter, Madison. Oh, Lord. I want video of that, Iris. And Carmen has 35 dads. All right, I'm pushing play. This is going downhill super, super fast.
This morning, I think, about how you were upset that you weren't able to realize some of the things that you had wanted, for example, the boat and the piano. I mean, those were all things that you had prior to separation, right?
Those were not the things that I wanted. Those were in Dan's marriage encounter as the list of things that he wanted as his possessions and material goals, I think he called them.
And you've talked about that by 1981, which would have been 4 years before you separated, you basically at that point had an unlimited budget. You had
No, not 81. That was 83. 81 is, the testimony was that was the first year we had any money, and by 82 we had nice money, and by 83, between 81 and 83, by 83 we had tons of money. So between 81 and 83 is when we started getting money. Before that, we had no money at all to speak of.
in 1979 when Dan Broderick was making $82,000 a year. You had no money to speak of.
When he was on his own, and he had the expenses of, was that the corporate thing or the personal thing?
In 1979, when his personal income was $82,000 a year, you indicating you had no spending money?
Right.
I would like to,
I wouldn't have known that's what his
Sir,
income was anyway.
before there's cross-examination, I'd like to see documents that support this.
He has discussed that stuff.
You got your hand to show it, Clint?
Brandon, he was if you're asking how did Betty's husband make money, he was a successful lawyer. He was either personal injury or
In
medical.
fact, it was
malpractice. I can't remember which
1979 that you put a pool in the house at Coral Reef, correct?
Yes, we got another mortgage on the house to do that. I think we did.
And did you not tell Jeanette DeWise, who you also interviewed with from the Reader, that by 1981 you felt you had an unlimited budget? You had a closet full of $2,000 dresses. You had a $10,000 formal gown.
No,
Dan had bought. When did Dan buy you the Lynx fur jacket?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
No, I don't.
So it could have been at that period of time then.
But what you said previous was 80 after 83. I thought I've always said the same thing. 81, we started having money. That's why we went to Europe. But we went to Europe and switched houses and got you rail passes. It wasn't what you'd call a
I
luxury
understand. You've explained that. I
Okay,
understand.
so what you just said that I said to someone in 81 is incorrect. That's not right. I didn't have those things in 81.
Your Honor, I may have marked this People's Exhibit next in order.
66?
66, a two-page document which indicates gross income of both Dan Broderick and Elizabeth Broderick for the period of time of 1969 through 1984.
Somewhere.
Do you recall being shown this document during the course of the divorce trial,
No,
summarizing the income?
no.
Did you put your income on income tax reports?
I had nothing to do with income taxes. If Dan did put something of mine on there, then Dan did it. But I didn't file separate income tax.
Why don't you
You had
take a
an
look at,
account.
why don't you take a look at those figures and tell me if you think that those are accurate figures regarding income?
That Dan made this list up, right?
This was a list that was introduced into evidence, and I'd just like you to tell me whether you think that they're accurate or not.
I wouldn't have any way of knowing.
I had no way of knowing how much money you made.
Well, I think my teaching job was $7,000 a year. So he's got down here in 69, I made 6,200. So that's close. In 1970, Gordon Taylor.
If you, ma'am, if you could just read them to yourself and let me know if you think they're accurate.
I don't know how he ever.
Brandon, she would not. I mean, she sounds like your wife. This woman sounds like my wife. No concept of finance, leverage, opportunity costs, offshore funds. Just sits there loosening the air conditioner. She wouldn't be loosening the air conditioner if you didn't make her do things. If you didn't do things that made her want to loosen the air conditioner. Just saying. So it's your fault if you didn't know. You should know, though. And thank you for the super chat. I match it. I'll match your super chat. $82,000 in 1981 is approximately $290,000 today. Holy cow. That's insane. That's insane. Well, I can't tell you what you did, but I just know you did it. No, I do not, but thanks for asking. And keep it, throw it away, do whatever you want. Hope the mac and cheese was good.
Never could have. I have no idea. I don't know how he ever came to a figure on what I made babysitting because I never kept records. Okay. But in the beginning, it looks okay.
You have described your marriage to lots of different people over the course of the years, right?
During the course of what years?
During the course of,
My life?
yes, during the course of your life,
No.
during the course of after your separation, you've made lots of statements to different people
Yes,
about
after the separation.
your marriage.
Right.
And you have, for example, told people, like Mr. Hargraves, who was representing me, that your marriage to Dan was the most ideal marriage of any couple. You were very happy with Dan. Did you make that statement to Mr. Hargraves?
At times, yes, I believe that.
And you told Dr. Goldsband that we had a wonderful marriage. Is that it?
I thought so. I thought we did.
You told Dr. Robinson we had an ideal marriage until Linda came along?
Yes, probably. Dr. Robinson, I don't remember meeting him though.
Okay. Did you tell Dr. DeFrancesca that you were always happy and that you had a happy marriage until Linda came along?
Right. I would have said that probably.
Well, when was it? I'm a little confused. When was it that you started describing your marriage as being rotten from the beginning?
Went exactly at the time you're on. When we separated, I then withdrew my consent for Dan Broderick being in control of everything. Until that point, I totally consented in our marriage to our agreement that he was in charge of everything. And when he walked,
Excuse me, wait a minute. Perhaps you misunderstood my question. When you talked to Dr. Goldsband, for example, that was in 1990. That was after you killed Dan and Linda Broderick. And when he asked you to describe the marriage, you described it as a wonderful marriage, right?
I thought it was. It was a very unequally structured marriage, but I went along with it. And I was happy when it was like that.
Well, how is it that you at other times described to other people that the marriage was a disaster from day one?
Dan was a control freak, and he had control in his marriage. As long as I didn't fight it, it was okay with me. Now,
Okay, but if we're talking about after separation, let's say you've already separated. You already know now what you think about the marriage. When you talk to Dr. Goldsband, when you talk to Mr. Hargraves during the divorce, when you talk to Dr. DeFrancesca, when you talk to Dr. Robinson, you described your marriage as being a wonderful, ideal marriage.
as long as it worked, it was. As long as I went along with this ridiculous plan that I was in, it worked. It wasn't
You
fair,
didn't
and
qualify that at all when you talked to these people. You said it was a wonderful, ideal marriage until Linda came along.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this argument.
that's right. So
Okay. Didn't you also write in your book that the marriage was a disaster from day one?
looking back from the vantage point of where I wrote the book in 1988, and I think I've already testified to that on the ski trip when I was suicidal and depressed. I wrote that book as a memoir in case I killed myself, so my children would know what happened. And I was very angry at that point that it's 88. I still have no settlement. I've been put through everything. And
Wasn't it 1986 when you talked to Bill Hargraves, when you were going through the divorce, when you were angry about things, when you still told him you had the most ideal marriage of any couple?
Your Honor,
But that was-
object is argumentative, and if you can allow her to finish her previous answer before she asks another question.
Overruled and argumentative was asked and answered to stand on that grounds. Go ahead.
Was it 1986 when you made that statement to Mr. Hargraves?
Yes, but that fits together because in 1986, I still hadn't despaired in the legal system and in everything else as I did by the point of 88.
So your anger at Dan Broderick after the separation is what made you change your feelings about whether or not you'd had a good marriage before the separation, correct?
Right.
It is true that you had discussed divorce on many occasions with Dan Broderick during the course of your marriage.
I don't know. No, we didn't discuss divorce.
You threatened divorce on many occasions.
The same way I've been said to have threatened to kill him. Yes.
Well, you didn't just threaten to kill him, you did kill him.
Well, and we did get a divorce.
Yes. And you threatened divorce even in the first year of your marriage, didn't you?
And probably to kill him in the first year of my marriage, too. Yes.
You threatened to leave him when he was in law school, correct?
When Dan beat up Kim and I left and went to New York, yes, I was going to leave him.
Was there anybody else around when Dan allegedly beat up Kim, Mrs. Broderick?
No.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to argumentative.
Overruled. That's a proper question. Answer stands.
And so now you're saying that Dan beat up Kim, that you left him, but you still had a wonderful marriage.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to argumentative.
Sustained.
It is fair to say you would even have to admit yourself in fairness that Dan Broderick's description of your marriage and your relationship and whether or not you were happy was significantly different than your description, wasn't it?
When was Dan?
Brandon, I haven't even read it yet. So Lauren, Bree is my daughter-in-law and Carmen is my daughter. And my son, Brandon, is standing over there. That's all true. Everybody else is just family. You guys just become family. All right, Brandon. During hurricanes, we do shoulders. Because if you want thick Betty back at the Hilton, blowing you harder than Milton, your arms better be effing swole. Oh, boo-hoo, I'm crying on a ski trip in the Alps. Betty Broderick. Nope, she went to Acapulco, though. So, she made it in a resort. Her face, she's proud of her crazy answers. She's insane, but it's funny, no shame. That's right. Yes, it's very unfortunate. Tears for Betty skiing in the Alps. Yes, Iris. He said women empowerment hour was over. Yes, she did have a horrible life. It's hard. She's worked hard for the money. All that stuff. Ew. There's people around me that eat. I can't stand that word. Flash fan, dang it. I can't. I'm not even going to say it because Brandon will twist it. So I'm just going to push play. And I will be right back. I have to go put some sheets in the washer real quick.
And describing it after the affair and after the separation and into the divorce? Or are you talking that he was describing it as it was happening when we were both happy?
Hasn't Dan described that you were never happy with him, that you were always volatile, that he felt emotional problems from the very beginning?
That's what he was telling you.
As to that question.
Overruled. The answer stands.
He has described that, correct?
In the same
The
way
answer
I
is-
was writing the book in 88, he was telling people in 88 and 89, he was trying to rationalize why we'd gotten divorced and he had the affair. And that's how he would explain things, yes.
What he described, you
never
got very
earlier.
angry at him at the divorce trial because he tried to describe his feelings about the marriage and how it had been very difficult from the very beginning and how he was never able to make you happy and how he felt that your temper was out of control and that you had had emotional problems from the beginning, that you had both tried to keep it together because of your Catholic background, because of the children that you had from the beginning.
He was making all of that up from the vantage point that he wanted it to appear that way in 1989.
So you're saying he was making all that up from his vantage point, but you're not making any of this up from your vantage point.
No,
Is that
I'm
what
not
you're
saying that. I'm saying my vantage point changed drastically over the years as to who I was talking to, as to what I was feeling at the time, and what I was talking about in the marriage.
Well, it is true, you are aware that there are other people who also believe that you had significant emotional problems from very early on in the marriage.
I was never aware of anyone thinking that, no.
You've
Never.
interviewed with Dr. DeFrancesca. You've heard Dr. DeFrancesca testify that you had a borderline personality, low frustration tolerance, unstable moods, intense anger, manipulation.
But I didn't meet
I'll
her.
object as to what time that was. That's
Stand, rephrase it.
Well, didn't Dr. DeFrancesca testify that that personality was something that you'd had all throughout your adulthood?
Your Honor, I'll object to that. That assumes facts not in evidence.
Well, she asked if she recalled her testifying after the last trial. Do you recall her saying that, just yes or no?
I don't specifically recall her saying that I've had those things for my whole life because she didn't ask me about my whole life. I didn't meet her until before the first trial in jail. So
You described to Jeanette DeWise, who works for the Reader and had an extensive interview with you, that you were very resentful of Dan from the very beginning. Correct? You were resentful that you had to essentially, you felt, be his maid. Do you remember saying that?
I know that he expected me to be his maid from day one, yes.
You described to her that before you'd been married, you had country clubs, you had cars, you had lots of clothes and designer things. I had a maid when I was growing up. My laundry got magically done. I don't remember who did it, but I know I didn't. And here I get married to this doctor, and all of a sudden I'm turned into his maid. You were angry about that.
I wasn't angry. It was just a kind of a shocking switch in time that the day I married Dan Broderick, he expected me to do his laundry and iron his sheets and make his bed. And it was a real
And
drastic switch for me.
He couldn't afford to pay for a maid at the time, right?
No, that's not it at all. He used to do it all himself the day before I married him, or someone did it for him the day before I married him. It was just such a drastic thing that the day I married him, I was now the maid.
Well, when you testified last time, this is why I'm a little bit confused. When you testified last time, you said, I was happy to be married. I wanted to be married all my life. I was looking forward to cooking, fixing up the house, cleaning, having children. That was something that you were looking forward to doing.
That's right.
And yet when you got married and that was something that you ended up doing, it was something that you immediately resented.
It was just Dan acted like he was a paraplegic from the day one, like he couldn't any longer function in these regards because he had a wife now. It was just funny that he was able to function on his own before, and now that he had a wife, I would take care of all these things for him. I didn't hate him for it. I didn't, resent him for it. It was just kind of funny that all of a sudden he couldn't do these things anymore. I couldn't even help me do them. It was women's work now. Before women could do it, it wasn't women's work.
You indicated that because he took care of all of the financial matters, that you just knew nothing about the finances or any financial matters, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Well, somewhere along the line, you obviously became very knowledgeable about this, long before separation.
I know you want to think that, but that is not true.
Well, do you recall having discussions, for example, with Jim Milliken in 1983, when you were all on your European trip, and him being amazed at the knowledge that you had about financial matters?
If they're referring to the investment club I was in, which I imagine he is referring to the investment club. I was in a group of women and we pool our money. It was $20 a month. We pool our money and we talk about stocks and we invest in stocks. That's the only kind of money thing I did. And even with the investment club, I never kept the books or made the actual transactions. I was only part of the social get-together that discussed the stocks and wrote the checks.
And you were very knowledgeable about stocks and financial matters. In fact, the other people in the group listened to you, basically, because you knew what was going on.
Well,
Is that
that's
true?
funny because, all I knew is this once a month meeting with a bunch of housewives, and we talked about stocks, and that's the extent of it. We had a few little speakers and stuff. The other people probably knew absolutely nothing because that's the only way they would have thought I knew anything.
Didn't you consider after separation becoming a stockbroker and try to get a job with Dean Witter? And when they wouldn't hire you, you were upset because or when they offered to hire you, were upset because you didn't want to go through a training program.
If you could find Dean Witter that said anywhere that they were going to hire me, I'd take the job in a minute. None of that is true.
Okay.
I
Did
never
you
went to
describe
Dean
that?
Witter. They never offered me a job. I don't have the qualifications for a job. And whoever told you that, I don't know where they got it from. It never happened.
Did you describe it at all to Liz Armstrong?
No, it never happened. Nothing even you know, sometimes people get confused and there's a thread of truth and I can put it together where, oh, they were confused. Nothing like that ever happened, except years earlier before the split up, I went to an interview at Merrill Lynch and the man was very rude to me and said that it was a job for men and that I had children and that I should basically go home and take care of my children. And I figured if I wanted to, I could have sued him. He was so rude. But I never took a test. They never offered me a job. Nothing ever came of it.
All right, that probably happened. Sorry, Betty. Bad pause. Back in that time, that probably happened. He probably did tell her it was a job for men and she had kids and they didn't want to deal with her. Yeah, her voice, I mean, like, she's going to shatter a glass if it keeps getting higher. And the paraplegic thing was what a weird comparison. I mean, who just comes up with that? Well, Betty. That was weird. I don't know. All right. Well, sorry, Merrill Lynch. Sorry, whatever the other one was. You missed out. I don't know if Barbara Walters did, but she went on Oprah. She has a dry wit. Yes, she does. But it's still weird. That's still just a weird comparison. That would not be, well, okay, I can't say that wouldn't be something I would come up with because I would. I probably wouldn't say it though. Okay, I might.
Just so that it's clear, you're indicating that you never had a conversation with Liz Armstrong about applying for a job with Dean Witter, and that you never got the job because you refused to go through the training program and refused to work on a commission basis? You never had that discussion with Liz Armstrong?
I read that Liz Armstrong said those things. Those things never happened, not even close. Nothing even like it ever happened. I'm telling you, if they had offered me a job, I would have taken it.
One of the other things that you said during the course of your testimony was that after the separation, that Coral Reef was the only asset that had your name on it. And that's one of the reasons why you were so upset that it got sold. It was the only asset that had your name on it. You were aware of the fact that you had your name on, for example, the Warner Springs condo. You were aware of that, weren't you?
I'm not sure that I was aware that my name was on that, but
Well, you knew of that asset. You knew of
that is not an asset, though. That was not an asset at the time, and it's not an asset now.
Well, an asset is worth some money, right? Are you saying Warner Springs was worth no money?
When we had it for all the years, we were one of the very first investors,
Excuse
and
me,
it was unsaleable. Yes, at any price.
after the
And still is.
separation?
Yes.
You were aware of the Fairbanks Ranch lots, and you knew that your name was on those lots, and those were definitely an asset.
The Fairbanks Ranch lot that had my name on it was sold before the separation, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But the other Fairbanks Ranch lot was owned by the pension fund of Dan's Law Corporation, and it did not have my name on it.
What about Pioneer Park? You knew about Pioneer Park.
No, I didn't know about Pioneer Park.
You knew nothing about that investment with Helen Picard and her
No.
husband?
No, I didn't.
What about the Keystone condo? You knew
It
about
didn't
that?
have my name on it.
The Keystone condo didn't have your name on it?
No, it wasn't. It didn't even actually have Dan's name on it. It
Well,
was
you
all-
knew that it was a community asset. You knew that you
But
had
that's
bought
totally
that.
different. Yes, I knew that everything we owned, in theory, was a community asset. But insofar as having my name on it and knowing how much it was worth, or having any paperwork, or being able to sell it, or know how much it was worth, none of those things had my name on them. And even if
Whether or not they had your name on it, you knew that they were community assets. You knew that Coral Reef was not the only community asset that was being sold, correct?
Coral Reef was the only community asset that I knew about that was worth money, because we had 10 years worth of equity, and that I could see and I knew about that had my name on it legit. Other things that had my name on them, I had no paperwork for, and perhaps I put my name on them as a formality. But insofar as knowing where the paperwork was or who owned it or who bought it, no, I had no participation in any other purchases.
And you've also testified that you knew nothing about any of the investments that Dan Broderick made with his brother Larry.
At which time are you saying I knew nothing? At
Right.
separation?
You testified.
See you, Iris. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Sharon, she doesn't remember a lot of things, and I think you're calling it right. Yes. No, Irish is perfect, Sharon. That's what Broken Baker calls her, and I heard him say it so much the first time I met her. I said Irish. Also, this is probably another thing that Betty is saying that is probably true. Because just for the simple fact that she wasn't working, it probably was easier to get loans in just Dan's name for this stuff. It doesn't mean that she couldn't be on it, but he would have been responsible for the loan, like the house or something. She could have been on the title, but it's a balancing act, especially when she wasn't working. She didn't have any. Her credit was probably fine. Maybe not saying she had bad credit because she wasn't working or because she did bad things, but well, I don't know. You know what I mean? But she didn't have income to put up. She didn't have that sort of thing is what I'm trying to say. So she may not have been on the loan itself, but it doesn't mean she wasn't on the title to the house or to the vehicles or other things. And just her fault, she didn't know what paperwork was. At least it's better than being called the pancake lady. Coral Reef House was her favorite. They talk about it a lot. Oops. So yeah, I'll defend her where I can defend her. I will do that for anybody. I'll give people credit when I can. But that may be true.
That separation.
At separation, I didn't know about those things.
You knew that you had your name on the Coyote's Yellow House.
Yes, but I also knew it had no equity.
Well, it had $143,000 worth of equity in it.
But that's not really equity when you're talking.
$140,000 is not equity?
I don't think so. If you consider 6% real estate, whatever, to sell it. And when you buy a new house and the down payment isn't really enough equity so that if you sold the house and went through the taxes and the fees and the points, whatever you do, you wouldn't have ended up with any money out of that house.
All right, since she's not talking, Brandon, hey AJ and 35 kids. Oh my gosh, I'm glad that part's not true. Brandon, what's the difference between Jesus and a hooker? The look they give you when you nail them, Brandon. Oh my. You weren't. Well, I know it's going to continue to be hot around here because I laughed at that. Thanks.
It is true that since the separation, you have variously described Dan in pretty derogatory terms with respect to how he was when you met him, correct?
Yes.
You described him, for example, as being a pathetic bumpkin.
I thought he looked like a nerd in the wedding picture now. But then he thought he was sharp looking. And I obviously did too. I married him.
After the separation, did you describe him, though, as being a pathetic bumpkin and a nerd and having no social awareness, and that you were the one that gave that all to him?
I said all kinds of ugly things every chance I got. Yes.
And during the marriage, before you separated, you said some ugly things about him in front of other people, too. You called him a fag. You called him an asshole. You made derogatory comments about him in front of other people, didn't you?
The Broderick family calls everybody
Excuse me.
fags all the time.
Mrs. Broderick, did you call him a fag in front of other people at parties and social functions?
Probably, and I probably called him an asshole, sure.
Wasn't it your testimony that you never used bad language till after the separation?
I used shit and damn and stuff, but not around the kids.
An asshole?
An asshole, but I didn't consider that bad language in
Yeah.
the text that I was using and stuff.
And you
I
didn't
didn't-
consider it hurtful at all to say things like that or to put him down in front of other people?
It depends on where we are and who we're with and what he's doing.
Well,
I mean,
for
sometimes
example,
he was doing things and it was just funny.
For example, when you went to Lake Tahoe with the Forbes and a couple other groups of people, you recall that one of the couples there basically felt extremely uncomfortable because you were constantly putting Dan down and saying uncomfortable things and making them feel uncomfortable.
And what year would that have been?
1981.
I know that you interviewed someone who in 1989 or 90 or 91 said something like that, but I never knew back then. She's referring to the same weekend Brian Forbes mentioned. And Brian Forbes mentioned it in the context of what a hard worker Dan was. We went away on this weekend with tennis and swimming and boats, and Dan brought legal files this high, and he sat there with a highlighter pen while everyone else was playing tennis and having fun. He was working on the weekend. And so I was annoyed with him for either, do one or the other, but I wished he hadn't have brought all that work with him on the weekend.
Well, you were obviously annoyed enough that you were making other people feel uncomfortable and making comments to the effect that they didn't think your marriage would last the year.
She made that in 1991.
Facts, not in evidence, in this argument.
Were you aware of the fact that she made that comment to Gail Forbes back then in
How
1981?
would I know? No.
It is true that when you had disagreements or complaints, that you didn't have any problems sharing those complaints with Dan Broderick.
About what, when?
If you got angry, for example, you didn't have any problems throwing a ketchup bottle at him.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Did you throw a
That was-
ketchup bottle at him?
That was not even an argument. Neither one of us were arguing with each other at that time. Kim was not there. None of the children were there. Dan came home from work. Let me tell you the little story. Dan came home from work. He's sitting at the dining room table and he's teasing me. And I'm like, cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. You probably called him an asshole way back then. Cut it out. I'm really tired. Please cut it out. And he wouldn't cut it out. And he was joking with me. He was teasing me. I said, if you don't cut it out, I'm going to throw this at you. And then he went, whatever he was teasing me about, he did it again on purpose. I threw it at him and he ducked. And it was funny. And it didn't break and it didn't do any damage. And Dan and I told that story on ourselves to other people. I mean,
And
we
Kim
told how funny it was.
Kim wasn't there and wasn't upset about it. The fact that the ketchup splattered all over the wall.
That's not true. No. I wish Dan was here to tell you the truth.
So do I.
So do I.
That might be a good place to take that.
If her voice if her voice gets any higher, my dogs are probably going to start crying. I will say this. So not everyone that says that is being mean. My mother-in-law and my stepfather-in-law, I guess, they're gone now. So, but she wouldn't care if I told the story. But they said asshole to each other so much, like joking and playing, they didn't mean it. Their bird that they had an African gray parrot. It could mimic both of them so well. It would make you look, but it would always say that. It would always say that. Like, it would always be like, hey, asshole, or you asshole, or hello. Like, I'll stop saying that word, but they did not say it mean. So I don't think Betty probably always said it mean, but I do think she probably did say the other one mean. That word I'm not going to say. But so I'll give her a little bit, but she's got to stop smiling and smirking and laughing and sighing. She's not presenting herself well in front of this jury or us. Let's try this out in 2025. AJ gets called a word, an A word by a bird. Well, no, I don't. That bird's long gone. Probably. I think so. My mother-in-law is she passed away last fall, and my father-in-law passed away at the end of 2019. So the bird, I don't know where the bird was gone before then. It was a pretty bird though. But yeah, he knew it. He knew the word. That was funny. But she never called me that. Not to my face anyway. She probably, maybe she did.
Recess, ladies and gentlemen.
Your Honor, and I'm going to ask that she be admonished in front of the jury. If she wants to argue her case now, Your Honor.
She's not arguing, Mr. Early. Take a recess. Will 10 minutes give you folks enough? We've got a late start. We'll be in recess till 25 minutes after 3.
And I'll ask for the rest of my witnesses that she not glare at them when they're on the stand.
We're in recess, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember that Mr. Early
I
knocked it
think
off.
you're right. She doesn't
We're in
care.
recess till
She knows she's
3:25,
going
ladies
to
and
prison.
gentlemen. Remember the
I
admin.
think. Maybe.
You seen it come to order, this court is again in session.
Matter of people, State of California versus Elizabeth Broderick. Court finds all members of the jury panel are present. All counsel are present. Ms. Broderick is present. You may proceed, Ms. Wells.
Thank you. Ms. Broderick, you described during the course of your marriage, your pregnancies. You indicated that you had 9 pregnancies, correct?
Yes.
Some of those pregnancies were terminated on your part by way of a voluntary abortion, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, there was an objection before trial that she said, I can't.
Your Honor, excuse me.
I'd like to be heard on
Yes,
this.
both of you approach the bench.
I want to be heard right now, Judge. That's what he sounded like. Get over there, court reporter.
You
Poor little church lady.
described in 1978, Dan Broderick deciding to leave the firm of Gray Carey and go out on his own. And it is correct that was something, you didn't just do that unilaterally, basically tell you, I don't care whether we have any security or not, I'm going to do this on my own. That was something that you had urged him to do, correct?
It's even discussed in the marriage encounters in 76, that that's our plan as a couple together, that we will do that. Yes.
Okay, so, and that was something that he had uncertain feelings about. That was something that you pushed him into doing. He wasn't really sure whether he wanted to do it, and that was something that you encouraged and you pushed, correct?
Well, he was sure he wanted to do it, but it was a very scary move. It was a very scary move, and so he was looking for reassurance that, yes, I'm in it with you, and yes, we're going to do it. And yes, I was in it with him, and we were going to do it, but it was very scary. And we discussed that in writing in 1976 in both marriage encounters.
Okay.
But that was a year and a half before he actually did it, how it would be risky. And
It wasn't something where he was just by himself putting the family at risk. It was something that you had encouraged and pushed him to do.
I don't know that I had definitely encouraged and definitely supported him, but I've already explained that Gray Carey was not meeting his professional needs.
Right, and I know you've explained that.
Right.
Do you recall explaining in your book that you pushed him, and after much hemming and hawing, he did it?
Again, it's
Did you say
back to
that?
the book that was written in 88 when I was angry and suicidal. The real, you could have said I pushed him, but the real word is I wholeheartedly supported him and said, yes, I'm behind you 150%. Even if we lose the house, we can do this, because it was scary.
So I guess you
I guess
are acknowledging.
you could say I pushed him, and you could say that I supported him 150% if that's pushing, but
Are you acknowledging then that in 1988 anyway, that you said that you pushed him into doing it?
In the book, if that's what it says in the book, yes, that's what I wrote in the book.
And he went and picked out, once he decided to do it, he went and picked out some very simple furniture to decorate his office, and you were the one that encouraged and pushed him to buy the very expensive furniture so that his office would look right.
Right. And I wanted to say if we were going to do it, we were going to do it right. And that's exactly the time I went and got this resale license I described earlier, because I got the furniture for his office half price with that resale license. But yes, he had the finest looking office in town, and he had no clients. And that was my insistence.
And the family did not suffer any detriment by him doing that. He was immediately successful, correct?
He was very shortly thereafter successful, but because of the way the cases go, he didn't have a paycheck in the first, year or so, or a year and a half. Because of the nature of his cases, he didn't have people pay him by the hour, ever.
He did have an income, though. He was bringing home money in 1979. Like we've talked about, he was making $82,000 that year, correct?
I wouldn't know that. All I knew is we had a $500,000 line of credit at a bank, and that's what we were living on. That's what I knew.
The family didn't suffer any detriment by that. Is that correct? You didn't have to move out of your house. You didn't have to sell any furniture. You didn't have to go live in an apartment. In fact, in 1979, that was the year that you were able to put a pool in the backyard, correct?
We didn't suffer any detriment, but we were kind of put back to square one because of the $500,000 line of credit. We were living on loans, and the pool was all done on loans.
Okay. She obviously had some discretionary money in order to put a pool in. Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't know that. Dan made those decisions. Dan got some kind of a mortgage. I knew nothing about that, but yes, it would certainly appear so if you put a swimming pool in.
If you knew nothing about it, how do you know that he financed it by way of a mortgage?
The swimming pool?
Yes.
Because I think at the time of the swimming pool, he refinanced the whole house or something and got a whole new mortgage that included money for the swimming pool.
Well, how is it that you knew that if you knew nothing about the finances?
Because I would pick up, in passing, things like that.
When you separated in 1985, February of 1985, you were living in the rental at Avenue de las Andes, correct?
Yes.
And that was a very nice, beautiful
Yes.
home.
Very
Big 5-bedroom home.
At one point, Dan and I were thinking of buying it, but they wouldn't sell it. It was lovely. Yes.
And at that point, when you separated, you had been married 15 years. 15 years, 10 months, correct?
Fine. Yes.
You were 37 years old?
Yeah, I guess. I'll take your word for it.
Well, you don't need to take my word
Well-
for it. How old were you in 1985 when you separated?
38. Well, I wouldn't have had my 85 birthday, so I was 37. See, I believed you.
And this photograph that's already been, maybe it hasn't been marked. May I have a photograph marked as People's Exhibit 68? I have another one that's been marked 67, and I'll identify in just a moment.
All right. Page 68, describe for the record.
An 8x10 photograph,
Of the defendant.
yes.
Somewhere.
So approaching the big 4-0 and you get left for a 21-year-old. That would burn.
This photograph that's been marked People's Exhibit 68, this is a photograph of you, and it was a photograph that was taken in 1985, correct?
Yes, it says it in the corner.
And you had indicated that somewhere along the line, in order to please Dan Broderick, you had grown your hair down real long.
Yes.
Your hair's not long here.
That was 1983 on our trip to New York when I was doing the wrinkle stuff. That was 1983 because of the affair.
And how long had you grown your hair in 1985?
I can get you a picture of it, right down to where it was in college.
Okay, and then you cut it again in 84 or 85?
I don't remember, but yeah. On the trip to New York, I had long hair.
May I have marked as People's Exhibit 67, a poster board with a photograph of Elizabeth Broderick,
Somewhere.
showing you what's been marked as People's 67. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And when was that?
I've never seen it before, but I recognize myself.
Was that taken in December of 1985?
I don't know. I know it's Gail Ford's living room because of the map.
Okay. And it was taken before a New Year's Eve party in December of 1985. Does that sound fair?
It was a New Year's Eve. So if you've got that year, it must be it.
So this was almost a year after you had been separated. You separated in February of 85, and this was almost a year after that, correct?
Yes. I did.
Well, she definitely wasn't fat like her attorney asked her if she was at the beginning of his direct examination, which was crazy. She looked good. But she questioning why she cut her hair or why she grew it out. That is weird. I mean, my husband jokes with me all the time if I cut my hair, because I threatened to give my self a buzz cut because it's hot. And he says, I will be single. So I told him if he ever comes home and I've got a buzz cut, well, there's the sign. Bye. I would not do that for lots of reasons, but I won't do it.
I'm not really sure that that's that New Year's Eve. It could have been the next one. I'm not sure.
So you're indicating it could have been New Year's Eve of 1986? Is that what you're indicating?
Yes, it could have been.
When Dan Broderick moved into Coral Reef, you've indicated that the Coral Reef house was under construction, and he was simply living there in a sleeping bag or whatever, correct?
Yes,
As
the
far as you
construction
know.
was the ground floor. The bedrooms were untouched.
And at the time, around the time of separation, strike that, let me back up. Several months before you separated, before Dan Broderick moved to Coral Reef, you had actually left for a period of several days, just left the house, essentially disappeared as far as the family was concerned. and were gone for several days, right?
No.
You don't recall at any time leaving and going and staying at Vacation Village and staying away from the house for several days?
I don't really remember that, no.
Do you recall going over to Gail Ford's house afterwards and telling her that you had just left and you've been staying at Vacation Village and living out of your car?
Unless she's talking about the time, I don't know. I don't remember Vacation Village, but I know I was homeless for a little while there in June, where I would have had to look for a hotel, but
Prior to separation, several months before February of 1985, you left the house and you were gone for several days.
no.
In fact, Kim described you being gone for several days, just disappearing, and the kids didn't know where you were at the time that you moved into the house, which would have been September of 84.
No,
That never occurred.
no,
Did you ever go over to Gail Ford's house and tell her that that occurred?
no. At the time that we moved, Dan and I had a fight the day that we moved because we had lived in our house for 10 years. He put his personal belongings in the red Corvette.
Excuse me, I know, Ms. Broderick, you've described that you had a fight, but isn't it true that when you left for several days?
No,
You're not aware, you don't recall going over to Gail Ford's house and her going down to Dan's house to check on him and the
I
kids?
read that in her thing, but I don't remember that.
Okay, so Gail. Do you remember when you did separate, having a conversation with Gail Forbes, where you told her that life would be easier if you just killed Dan, or if Dan was dead?
No,
Did you ever make such a statement to Gail Forbes?
no, but I can tell you what she might be thinking of.
Did you ever make such a statement to her about the time of your separation in February of 1985?
No, not that statement, but
Did you ever say anything to her about life would be easier if you just killed Dan or if he was dead?
no, but do you want me to go on a little bit?
Not
No.
particularly.
Okay, no.
And I don't mean to be rude by cutting you off, but counsel can ask questions on redirect if there's something else that he'd like to bring up.
Okay, fine.
In June of 85, you moved to the house on Calle de Cielo, and that house did cost $650,000. The property cost $650,000,
I
correct?
believe so, yes.
And at that time, Dan and all four of the children, by that time, were all living at the Coral Reef house, correct?
Yes. And I
Now,
was there every day.
when you moved to Calle de Cielo, you indicated that Maria Montez continued to be your maid, correct?
Calle del Cielo, yes.
Yes, okay. You continued, you had a gardener, you had a pool man, you had people helping you taking care of the house while you lived there at Calle de Cielo.
Right, you had to. There's no way I could have done it.
Between 1985 and 1989, you were able to put at least $200,000 into that house, into refurbishing it and fixing it up.
Yes,
Correct?
yes.
And you've described redecorating the kitchen and putting in a pool house and carpeting the house and furnishing the house.
Right.
And now you described that you fixed up the house in 1989 when you were getting ready to sell it. It is true, though, that the house was nice well before that. Several years before that, it was definitely furnished and carpeted and in a living condition.
It was a definite, very slow progression. It was a mess outdoors, all the landscaping front and back was a jungle. It was horrible. So it was a very, very slow process, indoors and out. I mean, every speck of every room and every floor and every door, so it was a very constant but slow process.
As of 1986, you described the house that you lived in, though, as being a big, beautiful house.
I mean, relatively speaking, it was a dream home
Okay.
because of the location. It was an absolute piece of heaven, what you could see from that house without even moving. The whole back of the house, unobstructed. White water, ocean view, sunsets. It was beautiful, the view.
My question is, in 1986, did you describe living in a big, beautiful home with 2 great cars, having many friends?
Yeah, in 86, yes.
So as far as you were concerned, in 1986, you were living in a big, beautiful home.
I was very happy in that spot. And relative to the rest of the world, the $650,000 ocean view home in La Jolla is a beautiful home. It happened to have been very dirty and very messed up and cracked doors, but I could have fixed that. And I did fix that, some of it.
So that wasn't something then you're indicating that caused you too much emotional distress?
But the house was a wreck.
Yes.
When I lived there in the beginning with nothing, when I was, and I hope I've testified clearly to this, when I spent that summer there still expecting to knock the whole house down, I didn't move anything in and I didn't purchase any appliances or anything because I still thought we were knocking that house down in September. So that was very upsetting and disconcerting to me to live in a house in those conditions. I think I got a coffee machine.
Okay, but those conditions were taken care of by 1986. By 1986, you knew that you were going to be in that house. You knew that you had furniture,
I never
and
knew.
you were living in a big, beautiful
I
home.
never knew. I had some furniture because Dan told me to get it out December of 85, just before he moved. The day he moved, he brought the truck over and he gave me some furniture, but it wasn't living room furniture that I bought in. It was bits and pieces. It was a very long process.
And you're indicating the way that you're talking about it to me suggests that you didn't feel tremendously upset. You knew a long time you were going to fix things up, and you were fixing things up.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't secure in that home. And as I fixed things up, I didn't mind buying furniture and walls and beds and that kind of stuff that could come with me. But when I invested in the building of that house, I was afraid I'd lose my money forever if Dan sold the house, or in the divorce, I didn't get the house or something. So I was really torn about repairing the building of the house.
Mrs. Broderick, from the time that you moved into the house in 1985 all the way through to November of 1989, did Dan Broderick ever do anything to suggest that he was going to sell that house?
No, except the Elicer and the forced sale of Coral Reef.
We're talking about Coral Reef. Now I'm talking about
Right.
Calle de Cielo. Once you moved into Calle de Cielo, you knew that was your house to live in. He never did. Did he ever do anything to suggest he was going to sell that house?
No, but I a phone call after the other house was sold. So how would I know he wouldn't do the same thing with this house? I get some phone call or a 4-hour notice that Mike was gone.
Are you saying you didn't have any idea that Coral Reef was being sold, but for that 4-hour notice?
Right, at that time, I didn't know. I knew there were
Okay,
discussions.
we'll talk about that in just a minute. Just so that it's clear, there was never any action by Dan Broderick to do anything to sell your Calle de Cielo house, correct?
Correct, but there was also no action to take his name off it either.
Okay, and there was a reason for that. The bank wouldn't let him take his name off. He was the one that
He didn't
was.
try. He didn't
Yes, he
try to
did.
take his name off.
Well, isn't it true that Dan Broderick was the one who had the income? Obviously, the bank was not going to allow him to take his name off that mortgage when you had no source of income.
I don't know that.
That's not a correct.
I don't know that.
statement.
Well, it's argumentative, sustained.
Do you recall him testifying at the divorce trial that he attempted to take his name off and they wouldn't let him because of the loan?
No, because
he
that's
was
not
the
true.
security-
He never attempted to take his name off.
All during that time, you had your name on the property too, correct?
Yes,
And as of January of 1989, when the divorce became final, that property became your sole separate property, correct?
correct.
There was no doubt in your mind about that at the time.
Right.
Now, when Dan Broderick moved in to Cyprus, the bulk of the furniture that had been at the Coral Reef house went to you. And he moved into Cyprus with just a fairly small amount of furniture, correct?
No, the bulk of it didn't go to me at all. The bulk of it went with him, but then he bought all new furniture.
But did you see the shape of his house when he first moved into it at Cyprus?
No,
You never went into the house at Cyprus when he moved in 1985?
no, not really. I know it was old, but I didn't ever, no.
You just marked one picture, people's exhibits, 69. Which is a 5x7, 4x6, excuse me, photograph of the living room.
People 69.
I see the picture.
If you just take a look at this picture, and if you can, and you indicate, does that look like the Cypress house and the condition of the living room when Dan and the children moved in?
I wouldn't know, but I recognize my love seat, my sofa, my table set, the lamp, and our family's large screen TV there.
And you described that, with respect to the furniture, that you got a threatening letter from Dan about taking the furniture or else he was going to sell it? Something to that effect?
Yes, I think that's what it said. I think it said, get your junk out of the garage.
May I have marked as people exhibit 70?
70?
One-page letter dated November 26, 1985.
Lauren, the court reporter that's here now, they keep switching back and forth for maybe they just can't take Betty because this is the only time they've done this. She's our favorite person in the whole trial. See you, Gabby. All right, Flashman, from now on, if you see Gabby's name, it's me. It's me. It's not Gabby. But we love the court. Don't ask us why. She wore cute little pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns, earrings on Halloween. And, well, we love the judge, too. Don't stare. Don't side-eye me, Gabby. But she's our favorite. Her and the judge. Although the defense over there was, a little while ago, was looking like they would rather be anywhere but in that courtroom at that moment. Sharon. Yes, I, AJ, am the queen of the corn. And if she wasn't leaving, she would put up something about www.onlycorn something. I don't know. She comes up with some funny links because I live in the country. And I do live around a lot of corn.
You take a look at people 70. Do you recognize that letter as the one that Dan Broderick sent to you regarding the furniture?
Not particularly. Can I read it real quick?
Sure, you can read it.
Okay.
Is that the letter he sent to you regarding the furniture?
Mhm.
All right. In this letter, he indicates to you, I understand there are several pieces of furniture at Coral Reef that you would like moved to your house on Calle de Cielo. I will arrange for this as soon as you provide me a list of what you want. I am well aware that you want the desk, armoire.
I'm going to object to reading the letter.
Oh, I asked some questions.
Sustained. Ask questions about it.
There's a list of property here that he said you were well aware of that you wanted. The desk, the armoire, the love seats, but I'm not sure about the piano, the living room couch, the dining room set, the pewter flatware, the red easy chair and stool, the pink swivel chairs, the antique love seat, the coffee table, the sofa table, the end tables, the table lamps, the civis, the corner cabinet.
Your Honor, I'm still going to object, Your Honor. She's reading the letter.
Sustained. Best evidence.
Did you let him know which of these pieces of property that you wanted?
See, we never had a discussion over what I wanted and what I didn't want.
What he's indicating here is that he wanted a
I
list
wanted this
from
sofa and
you.
it ended up at Cypress. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, did you get the desk and the armoire and the love seats and the dining room set? Didn't you get those pieces of furniture?
Those are exactly the furniture that I got, yes.
And you got the pewter flatware, and the red easy chair, and the pink swivel chairs, and the antique love seat, and the
No.
sofa table, the table
No,
lamp.
this is the antique love seat right here. I didn't get it.
Okay. Did you ask for it?
I don't remember. I mean, I don't remember.
How about the civis?
No, I think we kind of split that. He ended up with some of it and I ended up with some of it. And those are just little statues anyway. Those aren't furniture. But it's the last sentence in the second paragraph that says, and if you don't tell me what you want or something, I intend to get rid of it or sell it or something. And I found that to be a threatening sentence.
The movers will be moving me from Coral Reef to Cyprus on January 3rd, so you have until then to let me know. Anything you don't indicate you want brought to Calle de Cielo, I intend to take with me or sell.
Right.
You thought that that was a threat.
Yes, I did.
Was that an attack? You described when you got letters from Broderick.
When I got legal papers from Dan Broderick.
Okay. And my question to you was, did you consider this letter to be an attack?
No, but I considered it controlling and threatening.
Well, this one's fitting, Brandon. So, hey, AJ, I went to this paraplegic strip club the other day. Place was crawling with that. Cats. Cats. That's what it was. Still, such a weird comparison. See you, Annabelle. Ah, Brandon. That was the strangest comparison. I figured he probably was Flash fan, but I didn't want to say yes when I didn't know for sure. They seem to get the retrials too, even when you don't want them to. But it worked out this time in Canton.
It is true that there was a period of time when you did not want the furniture in your house because you were
Yes.
fixing it up.
Because we were knocking it down.
Do you recall writing in your diary, I didn't want to move any furniture here because the work could be much more easily and quickly done in the empty house?
That's right.
You're not talking about knocking down a house, you're talking about putting in carpet.
Well, what's the date of that?
Well, obviously it's sometime before you got your furniture.
Well, it's probably in the summer that I didn't want to move any furniture in because why? There was going to be extensive work, if not cut. One of our neighbors cut the house in half and carried it away. I didn't know if Don Edson would even want that house literally carted away. But certainly I didn't want any furniture in a house that was going to be totally redone.
Okay. So it wasn't that you were being deprived of furniture anyway, it was that you had made the decision that you didn't want the furniture there.
For a certain amount of time, but that's in the summer. That letter's December 85, correct?
November 85.
Yeah. And there's another thing here is that we only had one set of furniture. And when Dan was moving to his house,
Yes, I know, you explained that.
well, I didn't want to take all the furniture, then what would they use?
Now, you have said on occasion since the time of separation that when Dan left you, he left you penniless and homeless and destitute, correct?
I didn't have any money. And I felt I was thrown out of the rental.
And so you've indicated that you felt you were left homeless and penniless and destitute?
I felt that way, yes. And I felt I was forced out of Coral Reef as well.
Before you had your motion for support, when you hired Mr. Hargraves, you filed a summary of your expenses in 1986, correct?
Mr. Hargraves did that.
And that was based on your expenses. You gave him all of your checks and he went through all of the checks and he marked the date and he marked the check number and he marked the amount and what you had spent them on, correct?
Absolutely not, no. If you have something like that, it would have come later. Mr. Hargraves did not use any of my figures to come up with his inflated expense thing that he filed at that time.
May I have marked down as People's Exhibit 71?
71.
What is entitled Respondent Summary of 1986 Expenses?
Somewhere.
Showing you People's 71. Is that a summary of your expenses for 1986?
This is a Tricia Smith thing, no? It says Hargraves name. Okay, but it's in 287. Okay, now what's the question?
The question is that a summary of your 1986 expenses?
Yes, but This was done after the December 30th court hearing.
Okay, so you're just indicating this was filed after the hearing, but this is an accurate reflection of your 1986 expenses, correct?
I don't know. You know.
Well, there are,
If he did ask for copies of my checkbook register, and then one of his secretaries put that together. I never used that. Hargreaves was a goner by that time.
okay.
I never
Then you make
referred
a
to that.
summary of your expenses based on your checks. Are these, here are your check numbers, check date, and what you wrote the check to, and what the amount was.
Yes,
And the total expenses, the money spent by you in 1986 was $220,000.
we'll see. I don't know where I would have gotten it from. Okay, you're adding in the mortgage
one
payment on
year?
the Del Cielo house. I never would have received that money. Dan kept that money out.
Okay, was the total, obviously that was a payment that was being made for you, correct?
A lot of those things were payments that Dan made for me, right? So see, that it doesn't add up like that.
Isn't the total are you saying the total expenses of $220,000 is not correct?
I don't know if it is.
Okay, well, if you want to take the time to look, add it up.
Okay, let me just see.
I don't think Betty operated on a budget. I could see her spending $220,000 in a year. She did like to go shopping by
Okay.
her own
You
admission.
would have said that it cost that much to keep me in that house that year. But I didn't pay these bills, so, and I never had this money. A
Did
lot
the
of it,
check-
some of it I did.
The checks came from your check register. That's where he got the checks and the check numbers. Obviously, you had made those payments. Isn't that correct?
I don't
Oops.
know if that's correct. I know he asked for my checkbook thing to make something, but I don't know if he used it for this. What I'm having a problem with is at what point Dan stopped taking the
Yes, they
money
were.
out of a check he was giving me.
Mrs. Broderick, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how much money you spent in 1986 based on the checks that you wrote. And if you want to dispute that, that's fine. I'm asking you to take a look at that. And if we can, if you need to take some time to look at it, we can do that.
Your Honor, and I'm going to object this asked and answered. She's already explained that she wasn't writing mortgage checks.
Well, if the district attorney is inferring that there's some mortgage checks in there, I don't know, but you can take time to look at it and give an answer.
Okay, can we discuss this a little?
Well, let's not talk about the mortgage checks. We'll take the
Okay, let's
mortgage.
talk about the master plan on that page there. Right here.
Excuse me just a minute. It shows, for example, checks that were paid for your telephone bill, your gas and electric, your water, your pool service, your gardener, your food, your maid.
No, it doesn't say that. Look, this column says average monthly cost, and he somehow got an average, and then he would have times that figure by 12 to come up with that figure. This is not actual expenditures that I'm aware of, unless it's in there somewhere.
Okay, well, let's look at pool service, number 19. Doesn't it give a check? The date that it was written, January 6th, and the total amount.
Right.
There's a total down at the bottom for all of those payments you made that year for the pool service. The total is $936. At the front where he makes a summary, he puts the exact amount of $936 that you paid for pool service. Now, he goes through and does that based on your checks for every one of these and ends up with this total.
Are you
correct?
sure? Are you sure? Because
If
I'm
you would
not
like-
sure.
If you would like to look at this and
If you're
challenge it.
sure, I'll believe it.
Okay.
If that's what that says, and you're
You guys are seeing why she's the one cross-examining her, because she's just nitpicking her. $220,000 in 1 year. And you're like, I don't know. I spent it on. That's what they're arguing about. Like, she doesn't know what she spent $220,000 on. She's saying, I didn't. Then she starts listing all the stuff, but that was monthly expenses. But okay, is there 12 months or in a year? $220,000 in a year. There's that column. I can't see it, so I don't know. But hey, Betty, maybe this is why you couldn't survive on $16,000 a month. You weren't Betty on a budget. You're Betty making it rain.
sure that's what that says, I will believe it.
Did you spend $37,000 for clothes in 1986?
I don't know. And if I spent it, it could have been on credit cards that I didn't pay for. See, does that say these are things really paid for? Or are these things purchased and not paid for?
$37,000 on clothes in 1 year.
We'll look at the
I
clothes.
don't think I could do it. If somebody has $37,000.
Check number
and they give me a try, I'll
3329,
try, though.
date January 6th, payable to J. Magnan. amount $50.
Okay.
Okay, now are you indicating that that's not a check that you wrote?
No, I'm saying if that's what this says, I would believe every word of it, but I couldn't have agreed earlier until you show me things.
Okay, so looking here at clothing and all of the checks that you paid, that you wrote,
And some of this stuff isn't, well, go ahead. A lot of this stuff isn't clothing though. Any store that he has down there, like Neiman Marcus, is linens, a lot of it was, and Nordstrom's probably closed, but I. Magnin had other departments, and Saks has other departments, and I told you I had to buy everything for this house. So he wouldn't have known if those were closed by the name of the store.
okay.
And Bullock's, I hardly ever bought clothes at Bullock's, so it must have been something else.
The last
Go to Walmart. It existed. Kmart. Kmart was the big thing back then. You didn't have to go to Neiman Marcus or Saks Fifth Avenue to buy your linens. Holy crap, lady, the excuses you come up with. They had to. That's not all clothes. I would have bought clothes wherever she just said. Neiman? Did she say Neiman? She's making my head hurt. Wow. I got all the crazy women. Well, takes one to know one, maybe. You got all the crazy men. I won't repeat what I just said. Oh my gosh. Her just entitlement, is that the word I want? She's giving me a headache. I think it's her shrill.
last time that you testified, you didn't have any problems with this declaration. When I asked you if you spent $37,000 on clothes, you said sure. Did
Your
you?
Honor, objection.
Sustain.
You asked about a prior inconsistent statement?
You got something to refresh your recollection? Go ahead.
My question to you is, do you dispute these checks? And if these were expenses or checks that you were writing? If so, we will get the original checks. If not, we can introduce this.
If you believe that that's what that is,
Mrs.
I'll
Broderick, that's not appropriate, and
okay,
you know
it's
it.
everything on there, say it's a check.
It's argumentative, it's an answer.
But I didn't get an answer.
Let me handle it this way. This is Broderick. She can't testify. You have to testify. So just tell her whether you think those are accurate copies of your checks or not. If you dispute those are your copies, just tell her.
Can I ask her a question?
No, that's not appropriate.
Are all of the figures in there based on checks
can't-
of mine?
You can't ask her a question. If you want to
Okay,
see
let's-
them and see if they're your checks, you're entitled to do that.
If there are check numbers in there, they're my checks, okay?
Okay, you take a look and you tell me if there's something in there that you don't think is attributable to you writing a check on.
I would just have to look at it. Here's a page that says,
Well, just look at it yourself, Mr. Broderick. If there's something there you don't agree with, then let her know.
okay, would you come up here, please? This is a page that does not have check numbers on it. It says February, March, April, May, June, places of my charge cards and where I made a purchase, and the amount of the purchase on a charge card. It doesn't say I paid for that.
Are you
See?
disputing that you made that purchase with that charge card?
No, but I'm disputing that I paid this
So-
amount of money.
So what you're indicating is that you.
I had tremendous debts on credit cards,
Did
okay?
you spend $220,000 in 1986?
I cannot verify that without studying this more. I'm sorry. I know Mr. Hargreaves wanted to build up my expenses so that he could get me the support that he thought I should get, that astronomical amount. And I didn't know about these things when he did this. And he was already fired by the time this was done, so. And here are checks payable to credit cards, but not the full amount, payments, not the full amount. So this is not all just checks that I wrote. There are pages and pages here of Home Federal, Great American, Imperial Savings, charges on charge cards that were not in fact paid, okay? But they were in fact charged.
You didn't write checks to make those payments
On the pages like this one.
on the charge card.
Yeah, Natalie, I don't just they both, well, all three of them did things that were not good to each other. Like I said, there's nobody innocent here. She's just, I guess, the most wrong, for lack of a better way to put it. He did a lot. He was not nice. He was a jerk. And he he did a lot to her. I agree with you. You just can't, you can't unalive people. I didn't call her. I call her Natalie. I don't. Yeah. Yeah. It's $220,000. That's a lot. Yes, I did not say that. Called her Natalie. Thank you, Flash fan.
Payments.
The charge card payments, I wrote checks to make charge card payments. If I owed $10,000 on a credit card, I only had to make a few $100 payment.
Right, and those are what is listed here under the check number and the payment that you made.
Right, but also on these pages where it's a month, not a check number. See right there, May, June, July, April, those are charges on credit cards. They've not been paid, okay?
So you're indicating that you made some charges on here that you never paid?
A lot. And the figure he came to was of everything that I bought, but not everything I paid for.
I'm gonna leave this with you, and I want you to, when we take a break, take a look at all of the checks. And if there's any dispute with the amount of checks that you wrote, you can let me know.
I'm not disputing the checks that are in here, but it's not just the checks in here. It's the other category, as everyone will see when you submit it.
As of August of 1985, you indicated that Dan Broderick sat down with you and put together a budget and indicated that he was going to pay you $9,000 a month for support.
I thought that was October.
Do you?
Isn't that October?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was October.
Well, do you recall writing about it in your book and indicating that it was in August?
I'm just mixed up. If it was August, it was August.
Okay.
It was my memory, it was October.
And he indicated that he was going to make voluntary support payments of $9,000 a month, correct?
Yes.
And in addition to that, he was paying the income tax, the medical insurance, the house taxes, the home insurance, the car payment, the car insurance, and various sundry
Yes.
other things.
Yes.
It is true that he was making those payments without a court order. There was no court order that was requiring him to do that, correct?
There were no court orders of any kind. When we did that budget thing, there was no divorce. There was no.
You had been separated since February of 1985.
Yes.
Correct? February, March, April, May, August. So we're talking about being separated for 6 months.
Mhm.
And this is the time when he wanted you to take some responsibility for paying your own bills, right?
That's what he said.
Right. And that was because he was telling you that the marriage was over, that he wasn't coming back, even though you continued to refuse to accept that.
That's not what he ever said. No, because he's still lying about Linda. If you're saying August, and if we're going on, it was August. Talking about Linda, he was still lying about everything. So no, he didn't say that. He just wanted me to lessen his burden of paying my bills.
Are you saying that he was planning on getting back together with you at that time?
How would I know? I mean, he didn't say anything about that. It wasn't a meeting about that. It was a meeting about that he wanted to give me a certain amount of money so I would start paying my own bills.
And that he
Not
explained to
very
you
much,
that was
Ray. I don't have my
because
glasses
he
on.
was filing for divorce.
Absolutely not.
Do you recall him testifying at the divorce trial that he had told you over and over that it was over and that you
About
refused
3
to accept it?
That it was over, that in those words, that it was over.
Maybe not those words, but to the effect that the marriage was over, he was not going to move into Calle de Cielo with
I'm
you.
going to object to that testimony in '89 when he has a motive different than.
Sustain. You have a transcript, want to show it or refresh your recollection, you can do that. Otherwise.
I don't think she had any problems with her recollection. That wasn't the objection.
Well, if you want to show her what he testified to, see if it refreshes her recollection, go ahead.
Do you have any problems with your recollection of him testifying to that?
Your Honor, what he testifies in '89 is not proper to bring forward at this point in time. That refreshes her recollection of what he said in '85.
That's all I'm letting her ask so far, Mr. Roden.
Technically, because there was no court order, he didn't have to pay you anything at that time.
Technically, that's correct.
And then in December of 1986, there was a court order from Napoleon Jones to increase your support to $12,500, correct?
I believe so, yes. It may have been January.
That's, when he was paying $9,000 a month, that was over $100,000 a year. That's $108,000 a year, correct?
I don't think I ever got $9,000 a month. It was his budget with the house payment. By the time he took off the house payment and other bills he said were mine, like those ones with the stickers on that we saw, that he said he was paying that were mine, I never got even half of $9,000.
Well, the bills were to be included in that. You would, if he paid your
True, but I
bills,
never-
that was included in the $9,000 support.
Right, but I didn't get the 9,000. He started at the top of the page with that $9,000 figure, but it never got to me. He made payments out of it.
Right. And you had decided on $9,000 a month, which is $100,000 a year. And out of that was to come your mortgage and your gas and your electric and everything else,
And
right?
that's what he was hoping that I would settle for, yes.
Do you?
Ms. Wells, might be a good time to take our afternoon recess?
Sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our afternoon recess at this time.
Okay. All right, Brandon. Why is dating Betty similar to parking? All the good ones are taken. Brandon. So you just throw it out. Throw it in the disabled one and hope nobody finds out or murks you. Brandon. No. No. Bad, bad, bad. Wow. All right. We are done for the day. However, we will be back tomorrow with more. And hopefully, not the issues that we had today when we started. I will try not to be so rushed tomorrow. We will continue with the cross-examination of Ms. Broderick and learning as we go along the way. So, plan is tomorrow. You would think that Carmen already got here. She'd just taken off. Hey, Celestial Force, how are you? See you, Lauren. All right, so we will be tomorrow, and we will. What? You're calculating how much more you pay in taxes than your wife. She's been storming about. Probably didn't realize you hit the screwdrivers. Good grief. See you, Larisha. Get some sleep. Oh, it's okay. But we're about ready to go. But we, again, be back 6:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow to continue on with cross-examination. We are halfway through. Betty's testimony is 12 parts. This was part 6. So obviously part 7 will be tomorrow. That's how I count. And we'll just continue going on. I don't think so, Flash Fan. Unless you've got somebody you're thinking of. I think I'm okay for right now. I have, no. I don't know if I think she is. I don't know. But I don't know how they found me exactly, but I had one of the kids from Grandma's come in yesterday into chat. So I'm going to take a little break from that because this is not the place for a child. And I should not show up in any children's searches because I don't have the set for 18 and up because it's not that, but I do have it set not made for children. And I was getting ready to just ban them yesterday, but it didn't have to. Gabby knows I mentioned it as soon as I saw the person and the questions they were asking. I'm like, this is a kid. She knows. She already told Grandma. and they did not show up tonight. So I just will kind of keep my name down on the out of grandma's for a little bit, to be safe. Let that kind of die down a little bit, because I don't need that. I don't need some angry parent, yelling at me because I'm not raising your kid. So anyway, that's all I got. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay cool. If you get any storms, stay safe. And see you all later.